Hello and welcome to my YouTube. This YouTube is remembering the year 1947. I was 3 years old in 1947. We had just moved from Texas to Illinois, and my parents and I were living with my grandparents. You see, after the war, there was a huge housing shortage in America. Think about it. 8 million soldiers marched off to war, and many of them were 17, 18, 19 years old when they went into the Army. And now, 4 or 5 years later, they are coming out, going back into civilian life, getting married and starting families, and there were not enough homes. So millions of people had to double up and live with other families, and that was the case with my parents. Harry Truman was president in 1947. On January 15th, Elizabeth Short, who was an aspiring actress nicknamed the Black Dahlia, is found brutally murdered in a vacant lot in Los Angeles, and this case is never solved. This became famous. It was well known. In fact, there were movies made about the Black Dahlia years later. On February 20th, an explosion at the O'Connor Electroplating Company in Los Angeles leaves 17 dead, 100 buildings damaged, and a 22-foot deep crater in the ground. Here you see that crater. On March 25th, a coal mine explosion in Centralia, Illinois, kills 111 miners. Most people don't think of Illinois as a coal mining region, but in southern Illinois, they do mine coal. And Centralia is due east of St. Louis, so it's in south central Illinois. On April 15th, Jackie Robinson signs with the Brooklyn Dodgers, becoming the first African-American Major League Baseball player since the 1880s when they had the Negro League. And he became a Hall of Fame player. On April 9th, multiple tornadoes strike Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, killing 181 people and injuring 970 people. Back then we didn't have tornado warnings like we do today. We didn't have televisions telling us that a tornado was coming. So these tornadoes came out of the sky unexpectedly. On April 16th was the Texas City disaster. The ammonium nitrate cargo of a French Liberty ship explodes in Texas City, Texas, killing at least 581, including all but one member of the city fire department. And it injured at least 5,000 and destroyed 20 city blocks. Of the dead, remains of 113 are never found, and 63 are unidentified. Hard to believe this could happen in America. On June 5th, Secretary of State George Marshall outlines the Marshall Plan for American reconstruction and relief aid to Europe. And thanks to this program and the generosity of America, Europe was able to rebuild after World War II. On June 24th, pilot Kenneth Arnold makes the first widely reported UFO, unidentified flying object, sighting near Mount Rainier, Washington. The Arnold sighting marks the start of the 1947 flying disc craze. And let me show you just how bad it got. Okay? there were 1,553 UFO sightings just in 1947. They were everywhere. The Martians are coming. The Martians are coming. Well, not exactly. On July 7th, a supposedly downed extraterrestrial spacecraft is reportedly found in the Roswell UFO incident near Roswell, New Mexico. And this stands for the Roswell Army Air Force. I mean, this is the headline on the paper the next day on July 8th. They capture a flying saucer. And here is an actual photograph of what they found. Okay. It was later debunked, and it turned out it was nothing more than weather balloons sent up by the government. But it made, in fact, they came out a few days later, and the Army said, no, it's not a flying saucer. You know, I have been to Roswell. I worked for Apple for 30 years, and around 1990, Apple sent me to Roswell, New Mexico, to attend a meeting. They were developing software for school administration, and a team of Apple people, including me, went there to look at this software to consider purchasing it for Apple. And it is an amazing city out there in the middle of nowhere. This is the sign as you enter the town. And yeah, there's a museum in town that you can go and visit. And here are supposedly some of the creatures that they found their bodies, supposedly. But there's still much ado about UFOs in Roswell, New Mexico. It's become a major industry in the town. On July 26th, President Truman signs the National Security Act of 1947 into law. This created the Central Intelligence Agency, the Department of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staffs, and the National Security Council. So these were all created thanks to this. This is the CIA headquarters in Virginia. I've been there 4 or 5 times. I worked for a company called Control Data Corporation in Washington, D.C., so I've had occasion to go to CIA headquarters for meetings. This, of course, is the Pentagon. This is where the Department of Defense is headquartered. I have been to this building thousands of times. You see, underneath the Pentagon is a subway station. And every morning for 7 years, I got on a bus that took me to the Pentagon, and then I got on a subway that took me into downtown Washington, D.C. to my office. And there's a little shopping mall down there, too. Very nice, underneath the Pentagon. On September 26th, the United States Air Force is made a separate branch. Before this, it had always been part of the Army. When my dad fought in World War II, he was in the Army Air Corps. On October, the infamous House Un-American Activities Committee begins its investigations into communism in Hollywood. And eventually dozens of people in Hollywood were put on a blacklist, and they couldn't get jobs. They were blacklisted because of this. On October 14th, the United States Air Force test pilot Captain Chuck Yeager flies the Bell X-1 rocket plane faster than the speed of sound for the very first time. And that's around 700 miles an hour. Later in life, as a young boy, I had this model of his airplane. I was very proud of that airplane. On November 2nd in California, designer Howard Hughes pilots the maiden flight of the Hughes H-4 Hercules flying boat, known as the Spruce Goose. It was made out of wood, the largest fixed-wing aircraft ever built. The flight lasts only 8 minutes. This is as high as he ever got, and this plane was never flown again. And Howard Hughes became a household name. Everybody knew who he was. On December 3rd, the Tennessee Williams play A Streetcar Named Desire opens in a Broadway theater. On November 6th, the television show Meet the Press debuted on television. And the host was a lady by the name of Martha Roundtree, and she was very instrumental in developing the entire program. So it started in 1947, and it's still on the air today. This is the longest running television show, period. On December 22nd, the first practical electronic transistor is demonstrated by John Bardeen and Walter Brattain, working under William Shockley at the AT&T Bell Labs. This is what it looked like. Years later, in the mid-70s, John Bardeen would become a professor at the University of Illinois. And I was on the faculty and taught at the university at the same time. I met him once or twice. He, of course, was a huge name on campus. On December 27th, the Howdy Doody Show debuted on television. Now, the war had ended in 1945, and 8 million soldiers came home, and the baby boom started. This is a chart of births. Over here you have how many births per 1,000 women going back to 1909. And you see this blip right here? That is 1947. So 8 million soldiers. The average annual salary in 1947 was $3,000. If you convert that into today's dollars, that would be $42,801 in 2024 dollars. The cost of a new Ford was around $2,200. In today's dollars, that's a $31,000 car. The cost of a new home back in 1947 was around $6,600. In today's dollars, that's a $94,000 house. A gallon of gas costs 23 cents. Sounds pretty cheap, but in today's dollars, that's $3.28. Who was born in 1947? The actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Governor of California. The actress Farrah Fawcett, Charlie's Angels. Hillary Clinton. O.J. Simpson. The actor Richard Dreyfuss, famous for Jaws. The singer Elton John. The TV host David Letterman. The author of horror novels Stephen King. The singer David Bowie. The actor Kevin Kline. The great basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The actor Ted Danson. Senator Mitt Romney, who also ran for president. The actress Glenn Close. The actor Kevin Kline. Camilla Parker Bowles, who is now Queen of England. Bazooka bubblegum was introduced back in 1947, and Lord knows I chewed a lot of this stuff. The VC-54C Sacred Cow. This was the first presidential aircraft. This is the first Air Force One. Not quite as impressive as today's Air Force One. Of course, this was President Truman flying in this. Reynolds Wrap was introduced back in 1947. I've been to their world headquarters in Virginia. Ajax Cleaner. Lord knows I've used a lot of cans of this in the sink over the years, and the pots and pans. Wheat Thins, Nabisco Wheat Thins, came out in 1947. There were only about 56,845 TVs in American homes, and that's out of 37 million homes. Here's an interesting chart. So here's the homes, or the TVs in homes, 56 million altogether. Notice that 40,000 of them were just in New York City, and another 6,000 were in Philadelphia. So those two cities had 46,000 out of the 56,000 TV total in the entire country. There were only 20 TV stations, and here are 10, each one of these cities. Now remember, there was no cable back then. We had antennas that sat on top of your TV. So you had to be within range of the antenna of the TV station. So if you didn't live in one of these major cities, you didn't have TV. So that means 0.0015% of homes had a TV back then, still in its infancy. So, what were the most popular radio shows? Because obviously we weren't watching TV, we were listening to the radio. Number one, the Lux Radio Theater. And this was broadcast in front of a live studio audience for a number of years. The famous movie producer Cecil B. DeMille was the director of this for a number of years before he got into movies. Number two, Fibber McGee and Molly, the comedy duo. Second most popular radio show in America. Number three, Amos and Andy, two white guys pretending to be two black guys. They were popular for many, many years on radio. Number four, Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. This is what he looked like in 47. And the Bob Hope Show. So, who were the most popular musical acts in 1947? Number one, Dinah Shore, fabulous singer. Later in life, of course, she would have the Dinah Shore TV shows. Number 2, Vaughn Monroe. Number 3, Eddie Howard and his orchestra. He was a singer, but then he became an orchestra leader as well. I don't really remember him. Number 4, Ted Weems and his orchestra. And number 5, somebody I really recognize, Frank Sinatra, 5th most popular musical act in 1947. What were the most popular songs in 1947? Now, this is based upon record sales, radio plays, and jukebox plays. And this is both in the United States and in England, okay? So here they are, ranked 1 to 5. Number 1, Near You by Francis Craig, a piano piece. Number 2, The Harmonicats, Peg of My Heart. You don't hear many harmonica songs these days. I mean, look at the size of this harmonica. Number 3, Heartaches, Ted Weems and his orchestra. Number 4, Linda, with Ray Noble and Buddy Clark. This is kind of funny. I mean, they talk through half of the song. It's a guy pretending to talk to a girl that he ends up calling Linda. And finally, a song I do recognize, Smoke, Smoke, Smoke That Cigarette by Tex Williams. As a young boy, I remember hearing this on the radio. And now, since today is December 21st, 2024, I'd like to play and sing 2 Christmas songs that came out in 1947. The first one is Here Comes Santa Claus, and this was co-written by Gene Autry, and it was released on October 6th of 1947. Gene Autry always appeared in a Christmas Santa Claus parade in Los Angeles every year. This is a picture of him in the parade. And often he was right in front of the Santa Claus because he was a big star. And he tells the story that as they would come along, he would hear the children screaming, "Oh, here comes Santa Claus! Here comes Santa Claus!" And that gave him the idea to write the song. So here is the Gene Autry 1947 hit song, Here Comes Santa Claus. Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. Vixen and Blitzen and all his reindeer pulling on the rein. Bells are ringing, children singing, all is merry and bright. So hang your stocking and say your prayers, Santa Claus come tonight. Here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. He's got a bag that's filled with toys for boys and girls again. Hear those sleigh bells jingle, jangle, oh what a beautiful sight. So jump in bed and cover your head, 'cause Santa Claus comes
tonight.
The song is White Christmas, and the singer is Bing Crosby. Now, this song originally was written and first recorded in 1942 for the movie Holiday Inn. But over the years, the master recording for that song became damaged and eventually was totally destroyed, so they could no longer issue copies of the song. So Bing Crosby went back into the studios in March of 1947 and re-recorded White Christmas. Now, if you hear White Christmas playing on the radio, or if you hear it on television, what you are hearing is this recording made in March of 1947, not the original in 1942. Those are basically gone. So this is the most sold record ever. And I forget the numbers. It's something like 100 million or some astronomical number of copies of this song that have been bought over the decades. So here is the fabulous White Christmas. on behalf of my wife Sue and myself, I'd like to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas.